Herman, since we have a minute before we start, I just wanted to let you know I found what I was looking for. I found it in our own archives. I just had to dig deep enough to find it, so I didn't want to think that want you to think we were still hanging on something. So I just wanted to make sure I dismissed that.
That's great. Thanks. When I saw your name when I logged on, I thought I haven't heard from Wendy again on
Yeah,
that the
I found it.
resolution. Okay, good. I'm
It
glad.
just took a minute. We moved, so I had to go through the archives, and my
Yeah.
boxes got put on in a place that I never would have looked for them there. So anyway, it just took a minute. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad you found it.
Morning, everyone. We'll give it another minute here to get everybody on, and then we'll get started. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started with our roll call. Happy New Year to everybody. Looking forward to a good 2026. We'll start off with roll call. Central Front Range.
Happy New Year. We're here. Dwayne McFall, Fremont County Commissioner.
Okay. Eastern, there's myself. I don't see anybody else on from Eastern. Grand Valley.
Data Bursa, Grand Valley MPO.
Okay.
And Rachel's also on. Rachel Peterson.
Okay. Greater Denver.
Morning. There we go. Jacob Rieger, Dr. Cog.
Okay. Gunnison Valley.
We're here today. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so Michelle and Sue. Okay. Intermountain.
Yes, good morning. Brian Pettit with the Intermountain TPR.
Okay. North Front Range.
Yep, Liz Hyde, I am here.
Okay.
Kristen Stevens here. Thank you.
Northwest.
Brian Cirkvenek here.
All right. Pikes Peak.
I was waiting to see if Holly hopped on. John Leocello's PPACG, and Holly, I think, will be here for a little bit, but then she has a land use meeting.
Okay. Pueblo area.
Good morning, Wendy Pettit and Eva Colts-Leon.
Okay. San Luis Valley.
Yeah, good morning. Vern Hersink, San Luis Valley TPR.
Okay. South Central.
Good morning, Brian Blasey, and Commissioner Mitchell Wardell is on as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Southeast.
Stephanie Gonzalez, Southeast TPR.
Southern Ute. See
Good
anybody?
morning, Mandy Brown, Southern Ute Transportation.
Okay, there you are. Okay, Southwest.
Shack Power Southwest TPR, and Sarah Hill will be joining at 9:30.
Okay. Upper Front Range.
Good morning, Tim Malone, Morgan County.
Ute Mountain.
Good morning, Brendan Adams with Ute Mountain Ute Tribe.
Okay. All right, I think that's everybody. Anybody else we missed on there? Welcome to the commissioners that I saw on. Glad to have you on. So we'll move on to approval of minutes as presented for our November meeting. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Brian. Is there a second?
Second, Vern Hersink TPR, San Luis Valley TPR.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? See none. Is there anyone that opposes approval of the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as presented. Okay, Transportation Commission report. For the November meeting, I did attend that. December, I had a funeral, so I didn't make it to the December commission meeting. So Herman will give that update. But the November meeting, their workshops, they had workshops on asset management, and then Bridge and Tunnel did a presentation on
Right. I just had to start this.
Fun, but some
doing bridge deck rehabilitation to slow the deterioration of our bridges statewide with a one-time infusion of 125 million, I believe it was, that they're looking at doing with some of the new bridge and tunnel enterprise fees, so that they can start addressing bridges before they have to be replaced, which makes a lot of sense and should help extend the life of a lot of our bridges around the state, and looking to continue that sort of a program into the future. So was glad to see that. A lot of the others were just budget amendments and approval of some of the redistribution funding for some of the rural road pavement projects around the state. Would encourage you to look at the minutes from those meetings in our packet. Okay, Herman, on December update.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. I think we're finally going to get some snow today and over the weekend, so it's desperately needed. But anyway, the December workshops and board meeting, when we do December, we just do it virtual only, and we do a half day. So it was only a Wednesday afternoon meeting, so it was a bit truncated than typical. We started out with a historic first. We had a joint executive session with the Transportation Commission, the Clean Transit Enterprise, the CTE board. We've never done a executive session with them before, and then the Colorado Transportation Investment Office, CTIO. So TC and CTIO and CTE board members met to get a briefing on the negotiations related to the joint service passenger rail project that will go from Denver to Fort Collins. Lisa Kaufman gave us a rundown of the negotiations that she and RTD and the Front Range Rail District have been having with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad with BNSF. So we did that, and then we had a budget workshop. The primary thing from the budget workshop is we had some rollover funds from previous years with the Office of Innovative Mobility, and we used 3 million of those funds to begin a intergovernmental agreement with the Front Range Passenger Rail District to provide 1.5 million to them initially, and then another 1.5 million after they've accomplished some of the things that we'll include in the IGA. This will get them through the ballot access plan that they adopted, I think, back in November. This will help pay for the non-ballot pieces of the ballot access plan. There's a lot of technical analysis, stakeholding to get through to get them to a ballot question, whether it be this year or another year. So 3 million was provided by the commission to that task. As Gary said, we continued the conversation with the transportation asset management planning budgets. So, and we'll have adoption of those next week. These are just the planning budgets. So for FY 30 and 31 is what we're asking the commission to adopt and what we've workshopped this last month. Each year during the budget consideration, they'll actually adopt that year's asset management budget. But for our regions to be able to plan ahead on what dollars they think they'll have, we ask them to adopt a planning budget several years in advance. And the good news, I guess, in this case is our for 29 and 30, our asset management planning budgets are 370 million for both of those years. Our asset management has been pretty fixed, hasn't gone up a whole lot, but for FY 30, we're requesting that increase to 390 million, so a $20 million jump. And then in FY 31, 398. Now, of course, that's subject to actual adoption in those years of the budget, assuming those dollars are available, but it does signify a recognition of our asset management issues and trying to put a little bit more money into those to try to maintain the system that we have. And then we had a workshop and adoption of the Construction Manager General Contractor, CMGC, is an alternative delivery method of contracting. So the Region 2 with the US 50 Shift Passing Lanes project, they've chosen an alternative delivery. Now, there's design, bid, build, and then there's, if you don't do that, it's alternative delivery, and they've chosen the CMGC. State statute says that if a project is over $75 million, the Transportation Commission needs to approve that alternative delivery method. This is a project that's anticipated to just be 72 or 73 million, but it's close enough, and you never know with construction inflation. So they wanted to play it safe, and they asked for that, and that was approved by the commission. We also had a audit review committee. So we heard about our capital assets and storeroom inventory audit. That'll be, they don't publish that information the day of the meeting. They publish it the next month. So if you're interested in learning about what they found, that'll be in this month's packet that will get posted later this week. And I think that covers it, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that covers December. Chair, you're on mute.
You're muted, Gary.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Transit and Rail Advisory Committee report with Ann Rajelski.
Mr. Chair, I think Ann is at a conference right now, so we can maybe just skip this report for this month, or maybe if she's able to join a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah, let us know if she does get on. She could give a report later. Okay, TPR reports. We'll start off with Central Front Range.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We haven't had a meeting since the last TPR, so I have nothing to report. Thanks.
Okay. Grand Valley.
All right, so we have a couple of things to report. We are now underway on our transportation finance study. So we have fare and peers under contract and working to see if there's interest in, as a community, in a ballot initiative to increase transportation funding. We celebrated in December Grand Valley Transit's 25th year. So we did that with a Polar Express event, and we kind of ran our transit service a route through downtown with the Christmas lights and read the Polar Express with the library, and had about 250 people ride the bus, which is pretty cool because most of them had never been on one of our buses before. We also in December attended the ribbon cutting for the Clifton US 6 project, which has been a very long and difficult project for CDOT. So happy to see that complete. And I-70B through downtown is also complete. And I think, we had a safety task force meeting yesterday, which went really, really well. That's kind of the continuation of our safety action plan and moving forward with our new safety program manager and just working together to try to improve safety on our roadways. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greater Denver.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pause for a second to see if Austin Ward is here. I don't think he is. So happy to give our report. Jacob Rieger, Transportation Director, Dr. Cog. I'm going to reach back all the way to November 5th of our special board meeting. At that meeting, we adopted our comprehensive climate action plan, which we developed under our US EPA climate pollution reduction grant. We adopted programming year adjustments to our transportation improvement program. We were originally going to, in our cadence, have a 28 to 31 tip, but we actually, my board adopted a 29 to 32 tip framework, and that will actually better align with our 2050 regional transportation plan update, which is underway right now and which we'll adopt later this fall. My board received an informational briefing on candidate projects submitted as part of our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan update. And the board received an informational briefing on state required regional plan elements, specifically the requirement to have a water element and a strategic growth element, which will eventually be part of our Metro Vision plan. We were going to meet in December, on December 17th. That was a very interesting day, at least in this region, and I think in other parts of the state, with the high winds that day, and we ended up canceling our board meeting that day. We met last night, and we're going to meet again on our regular board meeting of January 21st, and we'll summarize those at next month's STAC meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Gunnison Valley.
Good morning, everybody. I'll give you a quick update. We celebrated Vince Rogalski's retirement, and he assured me I didn't have to do another 30-year term, which was good news. We voted final approval of the state plans at the last meeting. The next meeting has not been scheduled yet. And on other good news, we are finalizing the broadband connection between Grand Junction and Denver. So we wanted to reach out and thank CDOT for your support and involvement in that project. So that's it from Gunnison Valley TPR.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Intermountain, Brian.
Yes, thank you. We have not met during the holidays, so no report today. I just wanted to let Sue know that we always expect Vince to give us a Gunnison weather report.
Yeah, he may not be gone yet. We might have to get a sort of a few comments from Vince as we go along.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay. North Front Range.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kristen Stevens, and at the December 4th meeting, I was elected chair of the North Front Range MPO. I've been on this board before, but it's been a while, so it's good to see everyone. We also elected Liz Hyde, who's been attending this past year as our vice chair, and then Greeley council member, and Liz is the Eaton mayor pro tem. I'm a Larimer County commissioner. And then we also elected Johnny Olson, or Johnny Olson will serve as past chair, so he is done with his term. At the same meeting, our planning council received a presentation from our state demographer, Kate Watkins, on projections and trends for the North Front Range MPO area. Additionally, we approved the air quality conformity determination on the 2050 RTP amendment. We approved our executive director policies, a functional classification change request to Weld County Road 38. We adopted the 2025 Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan. We opened the TMO call for projects and approved 2025 quarter 1 and quarter 2 unaudited financials. And we reappointed Tricia Canonico and John Mallow as our North Front Range MPO representatives on the Front Range Passenger Rail District Board. And that is all for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Northwest.
Hey everybody, Brian Sirkovinic, chair of the Northwest TPR. I believe our last meeting was after the last STAC meeting. So our last Northwest TPR meeting, we re-elected myself and Jennifer O'Huron as chair and vice chair. We did move to 2-year terms, so I'm here for the next 2 years. The other big thing is that we approved MMOF funding for the city of Craig for $150,000 for a rail station area plan. So obviously, we're all in the Northwest very excited about the passenger rail that will be starting in November and eventually making its way to Craig and Hayden. Our next Northwest TPR meeting is a week from today. Thanks.
Thank you. Pikes Peak. John.
Thanks, Gary. And again, Holly sends her apologies. Again, she had a conflict with the El Paso County land use meeting. So I am the designated alternate on our official submission to CDOT. Just more sort of turning on some long-range projects. We're working on the TIP, of the freight plan, and our Certified Safety Action Plan, and would like to take the opportunity to thank CDOT Region 2 for their participation and assistance in those efforts. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Pueblo area.
Good morning. So we are officially going to be opening our public comments for our 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. If you're interested in seeing our draft chapters, you can go to acogmovestheregion.com. We also, the last couple of days, we hosted the peer exchange workshop. It was a complete streets workshop, and it was we were actually able to work with FHWA in their transportation planning capacity building. We were supposed to have it in April, got postponed. Then we're supposed to have it in October, and it got postponed. So we're happy that we actually had our workshop. We had peers from Las Cruces and Tucson to talk about their complete streets policies and initiatives. And they also talked about implementation. So hopefully we can take some of their lessons learned and knowledge and create our own policy and initiative. The other big news is our Pueblo Transit received $15.6 million from the FTA low or no emission program, which is great. And sounds like probably either the middle or beginning of February, our Medal of Honor Boulevard will be opening to the public. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. San Luis Valley.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Vern Hersink, San Luis Valley TPR. We met on the 13th of November, pretty standard meeting. We approved our 2050 regional transportation plan and our regional transit plan, and that was about it. Hoping for some snow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. South Central.
Good morning. Our last meeting, Brian Blasey, South Central TPR. Our last TPR meeting was October 23rd. Since then, we've approved MMOF funding for the city of Trinidad for $84,634 for the Santa Fe Trail multi-use path. And then also $206,000 for South Central Council of Governments for a transit storage facility in Huerfano County. Our next TPR meeting is January 22nd in Wilsonburg. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Southeast.
Good morning, Stephanie Gonzalez, Southeast TPR. We have a TPR meeting scheduled for January 28th at 10 a.m. in Lamar. We voted to approve our 2050 plans at our last meeting, so we've only had the scoring committee review MMOF projects since then, and we will have a vote to award those MMOF projects at our meeting on January 28th. Other than that, not much to report. Thank you.
Okay. Southern U.
Hi, good morning. We don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Southwest.
Good morning. Thank you. We did meet in December. We approved our Southwest Regional Transit Plan. We've put out a call for volunteers to sit on the TAP scoring committee, and our TPR is considering moving our meetings to quarterly while we are not in heavy planning years, but that decision has not been finalized yet. That's the end of report for Southwest.
Upper Front Range.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim Malone, Morgan County Commissioner. Our last meeting was on December 4th. I was elected chair of the Upper Front Range TPR. Commissioner Ross with Weld County is the vice. Not much to report. Next meeting is March 5th. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Ute Mountain.
Good morning. Brendan Adams, transportation planner for Ute Mountain. The only thing I have to report is that we are working on a broadband project, and we've been coordinating that with CDOT, so we appreciate their support. And then also yesterday we had a meeting with one of our engineers on a road safety plan, and we have that just about ready wrapped up, and that'll help us with other projects in the future. So that's all I have.
Thank you. For Eastern, we had our meeting first part of December. We approved our 2050 transit plan, and then we had some discussion about freight corridors and oversized, overweight loads and how to try to address those on our roads where we get the oversized, especially the over width trucks that come through that actually will try to force, or well, do force other trucks and things off the road because the load cannot go off the pavement and we don't have shoulders on some of these corridors that get these extra wide loads. So we had discussion about trying to figure out how to address those issues because you take a loaded semi with grain or whatever and push it into the ditch without any stable soils, especially when it's wet, it can cause a lot of issues. So had discussions about that and the permitting costs and possibly looking at trying to increase the fees so it actually would generate a little bit more money to help address some of the rural freight corridors that have to deal with these issues. And then we had MMOF funding discussion. We awarded some planning grants for Akron, and then was discussion about trying to improve our process for those MMOF funding requests and making sure that communities understand if they're doing construction projects, all the added requirements that they have to meet so that they're prepared for those extra costs of having engineers and things for construction projects. That kind of wraps it up. Our other projects are all shutting down for the winter and hoping to get some of the projects going next year.
Gary, this is Sue Hansen. I was remiss in not introducing the vice chair for Gunnison Valley TPR. Michelle Nauer, our very capable Uray County Commissioner, is our vice chair. So just wanted to add that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Federal highways. Do we have anybody on to give a federal highway report?
Good morning. This is Aaron Busto with Federal Highways. I don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay. How about federal transit? Anybody, anything from federal transit?
Yes, morning. Emma Belmont with Federal Transit Administration. I don't have any updates either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being on. And it's starting to snow here in Genoa, Colorado. So good thing for a weather update. All right. Move
Mr.
on
Chair?
to our yes.
Yep, we do have Ann with Casta now on
there you
this.
Yes, welcome, Ann.
Thank
Glad you could join us.
Yes, thank you. I'm joining from a hotel room and it's always dicey technology-wise, so I'm sorry about my lateness. I have a quick report on the track meeting we had. Our last meeting was December 4. We had a really interesting discussion where each branch of the department had a couple questions for discussion. So we had more input than some of our other meetings, which was really interesting and good and hopefully helpful to the CDOT staff.
All right, thank you for the update. And you meet quarterly, correct?
Yes.
So, okay. Thank you and welcome to our meetings.
Thanks.
All right. Update on legislative report. Start with Emily.
Hi all, Emily Hadaway, Legislative Liaison. Good to see you all. Happy New Year. We are starting the legislative session a little bit later this year, so it kicks off next week on the 14th. Excited to dive back in for the final year of the Polis administration. We had a very positive JBC committee hearing several weeks ago, right before the holiday. There wasn't too much questioning. Actually, a lot of the questioning was around aviation. That's in part because Rep. Taggart has a special interest in aviation, as well as Rep. Brown and Senator Amabile, because they both represent Rocky Mountain Metro. So there was a lot of aviation questions. We also spoke to some topics on CTIO, express lanes. We spoke about the 10-year plan. And overall, I think it was a pretty positive hearing comparatively to some other years too. So next steps with the budget is our JBC analyst is now, and by I say our CDOTs, but she doesn't work at CDOT, works at JBC, is now analyzing our budget, and it will bring recommendations to the committee in the coming weeks. I think usually in February or March is when the figure setting will be scheduled. And that will then determine kind of what those final decisions are around CDOT's budget. If the JBC decides to make any additional changes, we did not present any budget cuts. Our only budget item was around spending appropriation or spending authority for multimodal options fund, which we had lost access to. And so we will see kind of how that shakes out and what recommendations our JBC analysts might make to JBC members. Let's see, we are working on a few bills. One is the CDOT statutory cleanup bill that I've spoken about in the past. Rep. Pascal has agreed to sponsor that one. So we're currently working on making a few changes, but it's pretty similar to the bill that was drafted in the TLRC over the summer. We're also working with Rep. Smith and Rep. Taggart on some traffic safety cleanups. So that's a bill that might get introduced a little bit later in session. And then speaking to a lot of various legislators on different transportation topics that are coming up. Automated speed enforcement is a hot topic right now. I think there might be some transit bills. There's a few different things floating around. So we've been receiving some various bill drafts and reviewing those. And then our SMART Act hearing is coming up on January 20th. So that is when we will be in front of the Joint Transportation Committee and speak to our wildly important goals. And there's still an official announcement to be made on the makeup of the Senate Transportation Committee. So we're waiting to see kind of who those members will be. Of course, the CDOT family is still grieving the loss of Senator Winter, who was the chair of Senate Transportation Committee. And so those are some decisions that still haven't been announced on the Senate side, but we're monitoring that closely, and we'll be, of course, working closely with both transportation committees next year. Happy to answer any other questions, or if you heard about bills, we'll start doing our weekly write-ups as well in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Kristen?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Do you anticipate there will be any kind of vulnerable road user type bill? There has been in the past couple of years, always been sort of defeated. But do you anticipate that coming forward again this year?
Thanks so much. I haven't heard anything about a bill draft on that currently. There has been several iterations of the vulnerable road user bills in the past few years. I think where a lot of legislators are landing this year is that it's just a tricky year to increase any fees. That's what we saw even last year with the vulnerable road user / wildlife crossings bill. And so I think there's just a hesitancy just with the economy and with the upcoming election. I think a lot of legislators are wary of increasing fees as well. But I think probably in future years it'll come back, but I don't anticipate it'll come back this year, but I guess we'll see.
Thank you.
Darius?
I just wanted to mention to members of the committee that also in the packet is in response to the request that the STAC made is the efforts that Emily and her team had made to gather some information in regards to requests on legislative questions in the STAC packet, the slide deck, and the Google form. Of course, we have limited capacity, so I don't know if we can accommodate everything question that may come up, but that information is in the STAC packet for reference. So wanted to put that note out there. I don't know if you want to mention anything else about that, Emily.
Yeah, thanks so much, Darius. Yeah, that's a open Google form for anyone to submit questions or concerns, flags about any bill that's moving through the legislature. And if it works with timing for STAC meetings, then we can put that on the agenda to have a broader discussion, or we'll just respond to the question if that's immediately. There's a few different options there. So definitely want to engage on the bills you're hearing about and get the right information to you guys within our capacity. So yeah, take a look at that Google form. And if you have any edits to it as well or recommendations, please let me know.
John.
Thanks, Gary. Emily, I think last month you reported on the transit equity bill. Is that still out there, or has cooler heads prevailed and it's not moving forward?
Thanks, John. That's a good question. The last time I engaged on it, I know that busing had been removed from the bill, but there was still a new draft that was moving forward and had some changes, but I think there was still some concerns about impacts on local transit agencies. And maybe you have more updates on what you've heard on that front, but I haven't spoken to Rep. Joseph lately on where that bill stands.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Rep. Joseph in the last just before the holidays. I went to the stakeholder meeting they had, but I will say that as far as we know, it's still alive and making a lot of agencies around the state are pretty concerned about not the goal of the bill, but the fiscal impact and the result of that. Implementing it would likely result in actually less transit out on the road because of the cost associated. So a lot of concerns out there for us.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments for Emily for our state legislative? Okay. Not seeing any, we'll move on to our federal update from Katie Burkhart.
Everyone. I'm Katie Burkhart. I'm filling in for Jamie while she's out on parental leave with her very important constituent. So similar to our last update a few months ago, I'll keep it pretty brief with not a ton of news on the federal front. The most timely topic would be the appropriations process. January 30th is going to be the deadline for Congress to pass full year spending bills or a short-term extension. There's been movement on 3 appropriations bills, continuing resolution that funds most agencies, though, including the Department of Transportation. Programs has not been covered by individual appropriations. So we'll see what the next 22 days brings us, but January 30th is that deadline. In reauthorization news, the original aim was to pass reauthorization by the end of 2025, but obviously the shutdown threw a bit of a wrench in the schedule for many things. Negotiations around the surface transportation reauthorization bill will kick off in early March, it's looking like. There's a Senator Capito from West Virginia said she expects to unveil and mark up a bipartisan highway bill in early March. So it sounds like March is going to be the time. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Leadership has indicated a focus on more traditional infrastructure like our highways and bridges. The chairman, Sam Graves, said that in November that this will be the most important highway bill that we've ever seen, but it will also be more traditional highway bill. So it's possible that it'll contain energy policies, particularly focused on electric vehicles, but it sounds like it's going to be pretty classic roads and bridges kind of bill. That's all I have. In Jamie's honor, I do also want to provide a fun fact for today. It is the anniversary of George Washington's first State of the Union address on January 8th, 1790. So that's the little historical tidbit for the day.
Thank you. Kristen, question.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for the report. So we know that some of the federal grants have been rescinded I know Fort Collins had 2 grants that were rescinded. And so, and I don't know if this is a question for you or somebody else at CDOT, but how does that impact our TIPs and the STIP with those grant funds that have been rescinded by the Trump administration? Do we know about that? I mean, Fort Collins lost over $20 million in grant funding, was pulled back. And so just, what's the implication for, our planning for the future?
Good question. I might defer to Herman if he's on.
Yeah, I'll jump in from a tip and stip standpoint. That's not something that I've thought about. So I don't know if either Jeff or Jamie Collins wants to step in, but to the degree we lose grant funding that made a project possible, then we either need to scale that project back and still have it in the STIP, or potentially, I guess it could be removed from the STIP if there's no longer funding for it. But I see Jeff's on camera.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything to add. I'd agree with that, Herman. I mean, I think, there's not unfortunately, I'm not aware of replacement funding sources, certainly not from the feds for those. So I think unless there are funds to TIP in place of those, then you probably are looking at having to amend those funds out of your TIP and then out of our STIP.
Yeah, Jeff, this is Jamie. I'll jump in here too. I know with a lot of that stuff that the MPOs and TPRs have done a lot of work with DTD staff to kind of rebalance things and figure out which projects are true priorities for them and so on. So it's really going to be up to having the conversation within your TPR and then expressing those needs and those changes back to CDOT so we can get everything amended and swapped around in the STIP. And if you have alternate funding, great. But as Jeff just said, there was, the funding was basically removed. So unless we have anything in RPP or something, and that's really going to be a conversation with CDOT and see if anything can be put in place. But it's kind of tight right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Or legislative reports? Yeah. See none. I think we'll move on right on into the 10-year plan development update since we're ahead of schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I'm next, and I'm going to be joined by folks from Region 3, Mark Rogers, and folks from Region 5, I believe Tony Katie, or it could be Julie Constant to help with some of the presentation. This is a presentation to kind of go through some of the proposed projects in the proposed next version of the 10-year plan. And this is very similar to the presentation that was given to the Transportation Commission in November to kind of go through some of the highlighted projects. The full list of the projects in these couple of regions is in your packet. This is the first tranche of projects that are being previewed with these 2 regions, with more to come on the other 3 regions of the state later on this winter, with a potential adoption and a discussion on recommendation, of course, with this committee later on, probably at the March timeframe. But of course, that is subject to change as well. Next slide, please. And I think this is kind of the review that we had been talking about. We had talked about all of these items going forward. One of the items that is going to be going forward to the Transportation Commission for a workshop this month, and that was brought forward to the interagency consultation group, which met before Christmas, is the greenhouse gas analysis report for the non-MPO areas, which shows that CDOT is meeting the greenhouse gas reduction levels for the non-MPO areas, but does need mitigation in 2040, but is meeting it for 2030 and 2050. So that's one of the other pieces that's coming forward that has changed since the last time we had this presentation. But that's going to be one of the other pieces, and happy to talk about that as well. Next slide, please. And so as mentioned, the focus is going to be on the Western Slope projects with Region 3 and 5. We'll wrap up on talking about how the projects as a whole focus on fixing roads, advancing safety, and talk about transportation choice. And then we'll wrap up the presentation and see if there's any questions from members of STAC. Next slide, please. All right, and we're starting off with Region 3. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Mark Rogers to go over a selection of projects that they want to highlight that are being proposed in the plan for Region 3. So Mark, I'll turn it over the presentation to you.
Thank you, Darius, and I hope everybody can hear me. I'm glad Aaron stayed on this slide for a bit. I wanted to kind of highlight the pictures here from Vail Pass. This is construction that happened late last spring, all summer. It's amazing, you know, once you start moving dirt, where all the money and stuff go to. So this is from Vail Pass that is also included in this next plan. Next slide, please. So Region 3, first off, good morning and Happy New Year. Our Region 3 Director, Jason Smith, is on the road this morning, so I was asked to provide the overview. Region 3 is the largest region by geographic in the state. It includes the 15 counties and multiple major roadways, including I-70, US 24, 34, 40, 50, and 550. Right now, for the next 10-year plan, we have 45 proposed projects, 10 of which will be new in this next year plan. As the funding broke out for Region 3, we are expecting 132 million proposed in the first 4 years of 27 through 30, and then 198 million from 31 through 36. So just roughly about 33 million a year. For this overview, all the regions were tasked, as Darius said, with choosing just a few projects. We're going to highlight 6, 2 from each of the goals of safety, fixing our roads, and sustainable multimodal options. Next slide, please. So the first one here is Red Dirt Hill. This is in Grand County between Granby and Fraser. This is a major safety area we've been working on for a while and studying and working in cooperation with Grand County on. We did complete phase 1 this last year. It was part of the original 10-year plan. And then this phase 2 will continue on that effort. We plan on doing we plan on adding not only 10 million of strategic funding, but additional regional funding to this project. The safety improvements will meet current standards, including adding turn lanes, acceleration, deceleration lanes, winding shoulders, and really improving an area near an intersection there at the YMCA turnoff. Next slide, please. So this next safety slide, this next project is the I-70 interchange improvements in Garfield County. Over the last 20 plus years, we've been working on upgrading older interchanges from near Glenwood Canyon and working our way west. The next 2 interchanges will be exit 97 and 105, still to Newcastle. Region 3 is being very strategic in trying to balance funding constraints versus engineering needs to upgrade these 2 60-plus-year-old structures. The structures themselves are still very good. So we're just looking at layouts and traffic operations, safety improvements there to these 2 interchanges, mainly because the traffic right now during rush hour is backing traffic up on I-70. So we're trying to add ramp capacity and other things to get the slower traffic off of I-70 so there's less hazards and less danger on that. We have 7 million identified in the first 4 years of this funding, and then 16 million in the last 6. The other thing is we are putting RPP money to the design of this and other regional funding to help this along. A lot of our strategic funding will include not the strategic funding, but a lot of these projects have other funding included, but we're just highlighting the strategic funding. Next slide, please. So moving on to the Fix Our Roads category, our third project here is the I-70 Glenwood Canyon project. Again, this is now 40 plus years old. And as you can see from the picture, one of the biggest wears on this is the guardrail. It's just a high rust area, just a high challenge there, and this guardrail has really suffered. A big portion of this funding, the 11 million, is going to go to assist in guardrail. Region 3 for the whole region only gets about $1 to $2 million for guardrail and other safety improvements. So we haven't really been able to keep up with our maintenance forces, and so we're trying to put a lot of this money in there with an additional surface treatment project of about $30 million to put in concrete over the asphalt. And so again, we're making just a really big project of this over the next several years. And then again, 23 million additional funding in the outer 6 years. All tied together with a big project to get Glenwood Canyon back up to the beautiful area that it was and functioning roadway. Next slide. So the other fix our road is State Highway 149 out on the edge of Hinsdale County and Lake and Mineral County. This Spring Creek Pass was done several years ago, but the wear and tear on this road, as you can see from the picture, has really, due to the weather and other things, has deteriorated. We are going to do a $19 million cold in place recycle. The funding for this unfortunately comes later in the 31 through 36. We're going to keep things held together with maintenance forces, but if we get a chance, we're going to do what we can to get it done as soon as possible. But this cold in place recycle will pull up and mill 4 inches deep into the roadway and then recycle all that, put it in with binder, and then overlay it with a 1.5-inch overlay. We have found a lot of success in the high country doing these cold in place recycles. That way we're not having to haul away the material. We just reuse it, put it back down. And so we hopefully will find a lot of success in getting this down as well. Add a lot of value for the future on this road. Next slide, please. The moving into the sustainably increasing the transportation choice. Our first slide here is the I-70 business loop in Grand Junction. We've been working on this roughly for the last 15 years, starting from, if you know, the Grand Junction area, starting from the Mesa Mall, working our way east. We're nearing the end of the corridor. We've been working cooperatively with the city of Grand Junction. We strongly believe in digging only once as possible, so we've been working with them to redo their water lines and other things, so we appreciate the cooperation from the city of Grand Junction. We're finally at this end. One of the reasons we consider there's an increase in the transportation choice is not only with the new drainage and the new utilities that are going out ahead of the project will also install lighting, new sidewalks, and upgraded ADA ramps to really benefit this area, as you can see on the map. Also, we're constructing a mobility hub that will connect Bustang, Amtrak, and the local Grand Valley Transit Network, all next to the Grand Junction downtown. So when this is all finished, we hope to have a really nice functioning hub there. There's also 2 parks in this corridor that are also being revitalized by the city. So there's a lot of different modes coming into this area with the downtown. And so we hope this will just really be a nice showpiece there as you enter Grand Junction. Next slide. So making full circle all the way through Region 3, we're back to Grand County, and one of our later projects in the 31 through 36 year period will be the US 40 Fraser Safety Improvement Project. The 20 million of strategic funding is planned. It will make safety improvements to traffic and to pedestrian and multimodal connectivity for the town of Fraser and safety. We hope that the additional benefit from all these improvements will also be a reduction in congestion by providing operational performance and addressing future transportation needs, including whatever passenger rail may come through here. So again, this is one of the outer ones. We're still looking at the design, still looking at the needs on here and what we can do to really do operational performance to help there without adding a lot of extra lanes. So next slide. So again, these are just 6 of our 45 projects. All the projects are listed in the later pieces of the STAC packet. I don't know if you want to allow for questions now, Darius, or if you want to go through Region 5. It's totally up to you.
I would leave it up to the chair if you want to do questions or you want to do Region 5 first.
We'll go ahead and take questions for Region 3 if there's any. Okay. Not seeing any questions, so thank you.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Julie Constant, Region 5 RTD, who's going to go through the Region 5 presentation. Julie.
Good morning. Excuse me. Thank you for having us today. So highlighting, as Mark did with his first slide, the pictures that you're seeing on our slides, the first 2 on the right side, the middle and the right picture, are rather large bridges that we were able to construct as part of the 550-160 connection project that the last 10-year plan was able to bring strategic dollars to the table to really help make that a successful project. And then the picture on the left highlighting one of our many wildlife underpasses that we've been able to construct recently. And I think this was our one at Highway 151 and 160. If you want to go to the next slide. Region 5, unlike Region 3, has no interstates, and we are one of the smaller regions within the state. Received the least amount of funding, but we're very strategic with how we use our dollars, work with our local partners to spread those across our entire region. And we also have 2 tribes. We have the Southern Ute and the Ute Mountain Ute tribes that we get to partner with as well. Region 5 is made up of 15 counties in southwest, south central Colorado. We do have US 160. That is our major east-west corridor through the southern part of the state, along with 285 that gets a lot of people up towards the Front Range in the Denver area. And then US 491 gets a lot of our drivers out towards Utah, and US 550 not only north through the mountain passes, but down south to New Mexico. Region 5 does have 36 proposed projects for our next year 10-year plan. 28 of those projects are carryovers from the previous 10-year plan. So with the funds we get, we're really only able to add 8 new proposed projects to the plan. We will be receiving $69 million for fiscal year 27 through 30 and $103 million for fiscal year 2031 to 2036. And as Mark highlighted, we'll be looking at 6 projects as well. So only 6 of those 36, trying to highlight a number around the regions with the different TPRs, as well as some of the different types of projects we're spreading our funds to. Next slide. So the first project we'd like to go ahead and highlight is our US 160 Elmhurst East. It's a safety and mobility project. We did receive a $59 million INFRA grant, and we have been working on this project since the early 2000s, if not longer. This project will widen about 4 miles of US Highway 160 from 2 lanes to a 4-lane, as well as a center turn lane. We do have 29 accesses through this corridor, so we have a whole bunch of accesses, and we have a lot of crashes, both rear end as well as T-bone type crashes. And then we will be improving an intersection. Right now, we have a lot of high-speed crashes at this intersection, so we're proposing to put in a roundabout and then put in some wildlife fencing throughout the entire corridor as wildlife underpasses, as well as some alternating passing lanes. So we're kind of really hitting this corridor with a whole bunch of work that's been needing to get done for a long time. Next project. This is one of our rural roads, Highway 151. We were able to pave about half of it with the last round of strategic rural road paving funds. So we're going to come back in the fiscal year 31 through 36 round and go ahead and finish off the paving for this. And this Highway 151, we found out when we had a culvert failure on this highway a couple summers ago, how much traffic we really do get going between Ignacio and Pagosa Springs. It's kind of one of our rural commuting routes. So it's a key highway for us. Next slide. US 285, if you've been down in our part of the state, you know this is one of our major ways we get between the southwest part of the state and the Denver area. The gun barrel section of this highway is definitely straight and long, but it really doesn't have a lot of shoulders on it. And we're seeing more and more traffic as the population in the state grows, as well as the tourist industry continues to grow. So we are proposing to improve some shoulders, as well as maybe add some passing lanes if we're able to pull together enough of the funds. We do have about $70 million targeted for this project. And this is our next project that we probably be pursuing grants if the federal grants continue to come. Next slide. Highway 151. This is in the San Luis Valley, and it is south of San Luis as you're headed down into New Mexico. We have heard from Costilla County down in this part of the state for a very long time that they would like to see better pavement on this highway. Because of a low number of traffic that we have on the highway, it's hard to get our asset dollars to be able to pave it. So we're going to be able to use some of these strategic dollars for more rural road paving. Next slide. Highway 550. This is north of Ridgeway as you're headed up towards Montrose. And this is a major highway that actually sees a lot of traffic for the commuters that live in Montrose and commute down to either Ridgeway, Ouray, or Telluride. The road is narrow in places, and it doesn't have a lot of shoulders, and it's windy. And we've actually had a hot spot of crashes in the last year along this corridor. Mostly the drivers going too fast or under the influence of some type of drug. But still, we feel like it's an important corridor with the number of crashes we see to continue to work on this area and improve it with having shoulders. We will continue to work on the wildlife fencing we have in the area. We have a few gaps that we're going to improve, as well as probably add some rumble strips. And we've been working on a rural safety study on this highway to look at other improvements we might be needing to make along this corridor. And this project we'll be tackling with our first years of funding. And next project. Our last project we wanted to highlight is on Colorado 145. This is over north of Telluride, as well. Actually, we're going to hit a number of spots. So we're going to hit Norwood, Placerville, Saw Pit, and Rico. This is our ability to be able to do some ADA and pedestrian walkability type improvements, multimodal improvements within the region. Our highways are obviously the main streets of a lot of our small rural towns. And so we're always looking at ways that we can make it safer for the pedestrians to be outside of the cars, walking around our communities. But at the same time, we're still able to keep the highway traffic moving safely through the communities. So this project will focus on those towns and those improvements. And I know we've been working on design for a while, and it looks like we're going to be tackling it early in the plan as well. And I think those were all the projects I had to highlight.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Region 5? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Julie, for her presentation.
All right, to kind of bring everything together between these two regions, we'll wrap up the presentation to kind of show the focus on different areas and how these projects work together. I'll note that when we do a lot of these projects, they often fulfill many different types of needs. So when we take a look at fixing our roads projects, if we want to go to the next slide, we have 34 of the projects are going to be looking at fixing pavement throughout the region, with 20 rural road projects as the primary purpose of it, some of which you had heard already on here, but you see those throughout with the little markers on the map here on the slide, with another 14 having having paving as part of their scope, including some that could be considered urban paving, such as the I-70 resurfacing on Horizon Drive to Palisade, which one of the enterprises is also chipped in. The Fields Impact Enterprise, I believe, is also chipped in to help with that project as well in Grand Junction. So that's a heavy focus of one of the usage of those strategic funds in the next plan. We go to the next slide, please. A lot of our projects, 10 of these projects are going to be taking a look at helping fixing structures which are bridges, culverts, and other structures such as walls, like the Cerro Summit Wall, as part of their project scope. And some of those, the Glenwood Canyon critical asset repair was one of the projects that was mentioned by Mark as that was mentioned on there. So that's another benefit of some of these projects coming forward. Next slide, please. Then taking a look at safety, next slide, please. 12 projects are going to be focusing on improving shoulders and passing lanes, including we have the continuation of the I-70 West project, Vale Pass. We have US 40 passing lanes in Craig and Steamboat Springs, US 550 shoulder improvements and wildlife improvements, and US 60 dry creek passing and mobility improvements. So these types of improvements are all throughout the western slope. Next slide, please. 6 projects are going to help improve wildlife crashes as part of their scope. A couple of you already were already mentioned, including Elmore's Corner, but we also have the US 40 Wildlife Mitigation Safety Project, the US 60 east of Fort Garland, and the US 550 shoulder improvements. Next slide, please. And then finally, 19 projects are focusing on intersections and making them safer. And then we have a list of just a few of those 19 projects here, including US 60 at Pike Avenue, US 145 at Ilium Road, that interchange that Mark mentioned in Garfield County on I-70, US 50, US 550 intersection improvements, and many, many more. And then finally, when we take a look at sustainably increasing transportation choice. Thank you. Next slide, please. Of course, we'll have Bustang will be getting, and then this is, of course, throughout the plan, they'll be getting $60 million in the plan over the next 10 years to support Bustang services such as the Outrider services, Snowstang, mainline services, support the maintenance and improvement of that fleet. Plus, there's 13 projects throughout that region that will help support mobility hubs and transit centers and Outrider stops. Next slide, please. 16 projects throughout the Region 3 and 5 are going to help support local transit and through local partners, including some of the projects mentioned here, such as the US 6 transit improvements in Fruta, the Durango Transit Capital Improvement, and many, many more. Next slide, please. Then 20 projects are going to include active transportation elements in their scope, some of which were mentioned previously, such as the I-70 business corridor improvements and the US 40 Fraser Safety Improvements Phase 1, but those are scattered throughout the region to help with those main street improvements and making sure that whatever mode folks chose, that it's done safely and folks were able to get around to where they need to go safely. Next slide, please. And then, of course, Mountain Rail. I won't get too much into this, but just at a high level, there is, of course, Mountain Rail is one of the things that being proposed with at least partial service to, I believe, Granby being proposed by the end of 2026. And they're finalizing the service development plan, initiation of station planning for the West Metro and Steamboat stations, and Phase 1 implementation of operator rolling stock procurement and other items that are being contemplated. And this is primarily funded not through strategic funds, but through the Senate Bill 24-184 congestion fee mitigation. So that's another point, another piece of the transportation picture as we look over the next 10 years. Next slide, please. All right. This kind of goes into the roadmap for the future. At the January TC meeting, regions 1, 2, and 4 will workshop their projects. Of course, we'll bring that back to the STAC for the same presentation at the February meeting, which is, I believe, is an in-person meeting next month. And then as we go forward for adoption, which is anticipated in March, we'll have that as a potential recommendation to the TC after consideration later on. And then, of course, we'll have presentation of the CDOT GHG report as required under 2 CCR 601-22. And then we'll have a public comment period open as well following that January TC meeting. Next slide. And of course, I'll end on this slide as well. And I'm open to any questions, Mr. Chair, members of the STAC have.
Any questions on the 10-year plan timeline and presentation?
Darius, this is Brian, Northwest TPR. I was curious, you mentioned the $60 million budget over the next 10 years for Bustang. Is any of that for expansion of the services, or is it just for maintenance and kind of vehicle replacement?
It's for maintenance and vehicle replacement.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions on the 10-year plan? Okay. Not seeing any, so thank you, Darius, on that update. Okay, up next, a letter to the JBC on MMOF funding to local governments to be sent to them from STAC. Brian had proposed a letter, so I'll let him go over that.
Yes, thank you, Gary. I guess the purpose of this letter is really to encourage the Joint Budget Committee to continue to support the $10.5 million transfer into the MMOF fund. I don't know if I need to go into the importance of MMOF to this group, but since its inception, over 413 projects have been funded through MMOF since its inception. I can tell you from the Intermountain Transportation Planning Region standpoint, it's hugely important. Without transit services in the Intermountain region, we would have gridlock on many of the state roads that service our ski resort communities. Having said that, really the impetus of this letter occurred from last year. And many of the people that were involved with last year's MMOF distribution remember the fire drill that we went through when over $71 million was rescinded in order to balance the state's budget from the legislature. That was not fun, and it did impact our transit services in the Intermountain area. Many of those projects that were planned to be completed were either scaled back or scrapped completely. So the purpose of this letter is really to encourage the JBC in their figure setting in February or March, when they complete that, to continue to make the general fund transfer of $10.5 million into MMOF. That's the purpose of the letter, and I'm asking the STAC to support it and Gary to sign and send it to the Joint Budget Committee.
Okay. Are there any comments, questions, input on the letter? And I would entertain a motion to submit the letter also.
I'd make a motion to submit the letter.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, comments, anything else?
Just one thing, Gary, is I would like to thank Emily Hadaway for her help in completing the letter, and I appreciate her partnership.
Yes, thank you. Dana.
I just want to thank Brian for putting this together, because I do think it's really important and has helped our communities and our transit system. And I think something just to note is, I think like the perception is because the funding wasn't being used, is that it wasn't important. And that was not the truth. It's that it takes a long time to get projects actually going and get contracts and go through design and get consultants. And there's like all these steps. And so I think it's like important to continuously educate the lawmakers that, you know, not spending money doesn't mean that it's not important. It just, we're working hard to try to spend the money. And so I appreciate this attempt to educate, I guess.
Yes, agreed. So Commissioner Bowman.
Yes, I'd just like to thank Brian for the letter too, and I'm really glad that Emily could work with you on that. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Kristen.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for putting this forward. And I think that exercise we had to do in both the North Front Range MPO and the Upper Front Range TPR on figuring out how we were going to try to still make some of these projects go was really difficult. And luckily we had a lot of consensus, but it was tough to say no to some of these projects or delay some of these really important projects that not only, encourage multimodal transportation, but really also connected our communities in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of these for us were things that provided more sidewalk and more bike space. And so the community connection is, I think that piece is, it's maybe overlooked, but it's really so, such a big important piece of that too. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
You. Any other comments or inputs? See none. Is there anyone that opposes submitting the letter to the JBC? Okay, see no opposition, we'll submit the letter as approved. So thank you. All right. If it's all right with people, I think we'll just go ahead and keep going through and not take a short break if that works for people. Okay. We'll do the MMOF and RMS funding deadlines. Update from Jeff.
Good morning. Yes, continuing discussion on MMOF. So I'm going to advance a few slides. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead one more. So we recently sent some memorandums to local agencies with MMOF and RMS grants with upcoming funding deadlines, and wanted to take a moment today to update the STAC and make sure STAC members are aware of those communications and of those upcoming deadlines. So the MMOF and RMS programs have been funded through a variety of different sources over the last several years. That includes federal ARPA, that's American Rescue Plan Act, stimulus funding. That includes some state funding through House Bill 1466 and other state sources. In the case of MMOF, that includes retail delivery fee revenue and general fund revenue. So these programs have really seen a variety of funding sources. So what we're talking about specifically today are the MMOF and RMS projects that are still active, that haven't concluded, that have either federal ARPA funds or the state House Bill 1466 funds. So let's go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the sources going to those two programs, MMOF and RMS, they received our MMOF and RMS, sorry, I can't talk, both received stimulus funding that was allocated under Senate Bill 260 several years ago. So in the case of the MMOF program, that included about $147 million that was allocated under Senate Bill 260 to the MMOF using those ARPA funds, and about $22 million in ARPA funds that were allocated to the Revitalizing Main Streets program. These funds came with two key deadlines, and these are federal deadlines, not state deadlines, at least the primary deadline. Funding ARPA funds were subject to a December 31, 2024 obligation deadline, this per the U.S. Treasury. So that meant that all of those ARPA funds had to be obligated or under contract by December 31, 2024. We met that deadline. All of the ARPA funds were obligated by December 31, 2024. The other deadline, which was December 31, according to the U.S. Treasury, but then was tightened by the state of Colorado under CRS 2475-226, is December 11. So those funds must be fully expended by December 11, 2026. So let's go on to the next slide, and I'll get into a little bit more details on what the memos communicated and what those deadlines mean. Of those ARPA funds, a large portion of them were later refinanced. And what that meant is that the legislature, not last session, but the session before, elected to do a funding swap. And so they took 96 million of the ARPA dollars going to the MMOF and 15 million of the ARPA dollars going to the RMS, and they replaced it with state general fund. And the legislature did that because they were concerned about not just these programs, but in general, those ARPA allocations being able to fully meet those deadlines. So they did a swap. They took the ARPA dollars, they put them to some things that we're going to spend more quickly, and they allocated out general fund to those programs. Those general fund refinance dollars came with their own set of deadlines, though. When those dollars were refinanced, we did execute option letters. So all of the projects that were in contracts with ARPA dollars that had funds swapped out, for those projects, we executed option letters to basically swap those dollars out. Those refinanced general fund dollars still have essentially the same deadline, December 31, 2026. The key distinction between the two of these deadlines, though, is in the case of the ARPA dollars, those dollars are completely lost to the state. They are clawed back to the U.S. Treasury. In the case of the House Bill 1466 refinance funds, those dollars aren't lost to the state. They're clawed back to the general fund. So they may be lost to the MMOF or lost to the RMS, but not lost to the state. Let's go to the next slide, please. So where are we at with respect to those deadlines? This slide summarizes the status of those funds. So in the case of the ARPA funds, we have about 8.7 million that has not yet spent. So 8.7 million that has to be spent by December 11 of 2026. That 8.7 million is tied to 13 MMOF projects and 1 RMS project. In the case of the refinance dollars, we have quite a bit more at risk. We have a total of about $75 million that still needs to be spent between now and in the case of the refinance dollars, December 31. Those dollars are tied to 52 MMOF projects and 10 RMS projects. As I noted, in November and December, memos were sent out to the local agency points of contact for each of these 76 projects with remaining funds to spend. There's a little bit of a time lag in communication because we were working with the state office of the state controller to seek some clarification on the ARPA guidance. So the guidance for the House Bill 1466 general fund refinance, that guidance went out in November. The guidance related to ARPA actually just went out, I believe the week before last. It went out sometime during the holiday season. Let's go on to the next slide here, and I'll talk a little bit more about sort of what those deadlines mean and what was communicated in those memos. So again, the memorandums that we sent out went to all the local agency point of contacts, also went to all the CDOT staff overseeing those projects, and provided a reminder of those deadlines as well as some more specifics about what needs to be done from a billing perspective, et cetera, to meet all those deadlines. I'll note that these deadlines shouldn't be a surprise. There has been there is additional information, and in some cases some slight changes, tightening of some of the deadlines that we've received through the Office of the State Controller. But in general, these funds have always had a deadline at the end of 2026, and that shouldn't be news. The contracts, IGAs, and grants that were executed for these projects all had deadlines in them at the end of 2026. So, I am sure that most folks are hopefully tracking this, but just want to point out that that this really shouldn't be a surprise. These are the deadlines we've been working with respect to these funds since they were initially allocated, with some slight modifications, I will note. So let's go on to, actually, let's see here. So yeah, just to walk through this a little bit more of the specifics. First, with respect to ARPA, per state statute, work must be completed by December 11, 2026. So this is a slight change. Originally, I think our contracts were executed for December 31. That was the U.S. Treasury deadline. However, there's actually state statute that modified that deadline to December 11. I'll note that we're encouraging that work be completed much sooner than that work be completed by September 30. The reason for that is just that these are totally inflexible deadlines. And so we want to make sure that local agencies have time to get billing submitted, that if there's billing issues, you can get those to us. We don't want to see locals not get reimbursed because we ran down the clock and then we didn't have complete documentation, et cetera. So in the case of the ARPA funds, again, December 11 is the deadline. If there is work incurred on December 12, it will not be reimbursed. And as I noted, we encourage that work be completed in advance of December 11. This is actually guidance from the State Controller's Office encouraging that work be completed by September 30. The final billing deadline is January 4. That means that in order to be reimbursed, we need final complete billings no later than January 4. It should really be, you should plan on, we should plan on seeing that much sooner than January 4. If we don't get a billing until January 4 and there's a problem with it, documentation is incomplete, there's errors in it, there won't be time to resolve it. And if we get resolved documentation on January 5, too late. We won't be able to reimburse. Again, these are completely inflexible deadlines, unfortunately. So really important that while we have the opportunity to process reimbursements up until January 4, we really don't want to wait to get those until January 4 because we likely will not be able to get them processed in time. In the case of the ARPA funds, the dollars are lost to the state. So any funds that aren't spent that we're not able to receive a billing for by January 4 are returned to the U.S. Treasury. I will note that in the case of the ARPA contracts, and I believe there's about 14, I think there's 14 contracts with ARPA dollars. We will be working with local agencies to make amendments to those contracts to reflect the tightened deadlines. So those contracts currently reflect the original Treasury deadlines of December 31 and different billing deadlines. We will be working over the months ahead to amend those contracts to make sure they align with these final deadlines that we've received and that we've communicated through these memos. So the House Bill 1466, the state general funds or the refinance funds, these per state statute, because these are state funds, have a work deadline of December 31. So on these, we actually technically have through the end of December to incur expenses. So an extra 20 days beyond the ARPA funds. We also have a little bit more wiggle room on the billing deadline. Billing deadline for these funds is February 14, 2027, unless specified earlier in an IGA or grant. There are some instances where we've got IGAs or grants that have tighter deadlines. If there's a tighter deadline in the IGA or grant, that tighter deadline holds. And then we'll note too that grantees are encouraged to submit invoices in advance of that final deadline, no later than January 31 if the final deadline is February 14. I'd say similarly earlier, a couple weeks earlier if you have an earlier date specified in the IGA or grant. In the case of the state general funds, again, any unspent funds are lost to the program, but in this case, they're not lost to the state. They will just be swept back to the state general fund and reallocated by the legislature. So let's go on. I think I've got one more slide here, maybe. So again, memos have been sent to affected local agencies with unspent ARPA and House Bill 1466 funding. The memos come with a list that lists out each of the, I think I said 76 projects across the two funding sources and the two programs. Again, we're bringing this to you today, STAC, just to make sure you're aware as representatives of many of these local agencies. we want to make sure that this is on your radar and you're aware of the status, and also that we're aware of the consequences here. I think we deal with a lot of deadlines, and I think we're often able to find ways to sort of work with those deadlines. I think in the case of these two funding sources, we really have limited flexibility. There is no opportunity for extensions. So doesn't matter what the reason is, we have zero ability to extend a contract or to extend the deadline for either the ARPA or the HB 1466 funds. I will also note swap opportunities are extremely limited. So we do not have a lot of options if the question comes up, oh, we're going to have trouble with this. Can we swap this out with some other dollars and move this into another project? I don't want to say there are no opportunities, but they are extremely limited. And most likely for most projects just will not be an option. So want to make sure that that is understood. Again, I wish we had more flexibility here. We just don't. So I think wrapping up, and then I want to see if Medora or Michael Snow want to jump in as sort of the subject matter experts on these programs and add anything that I may have missed. But I think just a couple of items that I'll mention is just make sure, I think we want to make sure that if locals are concerned, if there is a project that you are concerned or is going to really struggle to meet the deadline, we need to know that as soon as possible. So please make sure, we want to make sure that that project managers are communicating with CDOT project managers if there is a concern about a project meeting deadlines. Again, limited ability for us to do anything about it, but I think we still want to know as soon as possible so that we can work with you and see if there is something we can do. But again, I think opportunities are very limited. So I think that was my last slide. Medora, Michael, I think we're be happy to take questions, but I'll just say before we open it up to questions, Medora or Michael, anything you want to add or correct me on?
No correction. The one thing I wanted to add is that we did notify TPRs of these memos. You were sent these memos via email. But if you didn't have any MMOF projects subject to the deadline, you did not receive that memo. So I think there were maybe 6 TPRs with ARPA projects with unspent funds. And so those 6 TPRs received the ARPA deadlines memo, but the other TPRs did not. So if you're wondering why you didn't receive 2 memos, that is the reason. Thank you.
So I think if there are questions, I think Medora, Michael, and I would be happy to try to take those. But I guess otherwise, I just wanted to make sure that STAC members were aware and wanted to, I think, solicit your help probably in making sure others are aware of the communication that went out and really of just the fact that this is a situation where we don't have a lot of flexibility. So we really need to all work together to do our best to try to make sure that these dollars are spent. Obviously, nobody wants to see dollars lost to either the program and certainly don't want to see dollars lost to the state. So I'll hand it back to you, Chair.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff or things on this? I think we've all been aware of these and been trying to make sure our agencies are moving forward. So just continue that effort. Okay, not seeing any questions. We'll move on to the CDOT live camera update with Bob Fife. Is he on?
Aaron, did we get a note from Bob Pfeiffer?
We did not get a note. And
we are an hour early, so.
And but I believe Craig is ready to go if we wanted to switch those 2 items.
Okay. Yeah, if Craig's on, we'll go ahead and switch to the truck chain up stations and see if we can get Bob on early.
Craig?
Being too efficient this morning.
I just saw Craig because he came over to my desk. Okay, someone's going to go knock on this door now.
I guess I'd just like to make some comments on especially we've seen it with the MMOF projects. I know some of the sidewalk projects and things, some of the communities had issues with getting cement delivered to meet CDOT standards because local cement plants weren't certified or whatever the issues may be. And then they were having trouble getting the cement actually delivered in good
Thank you,
condition
Phil.
because of the distances. I've just kind of wondered if there's a way to improve the process of the contracting, and especially for distant rural areas that don't necessarily have cement plants or asphalt plants that can meet or don't have the certifications from the state. If there's a way to work with some of that and lessen some of that work and some of those issues, because I think it is driving up cost and delaying projects getting moving forward because of the amount of extra engineering and things that are required. I know the federal requirements are difficult to do, but if there's anything to do on the state side of those things, I really would encourage our state staff to try to figure out ways to simplify the processes and make sure that especially distant rural areas have access to get concrete and things, especially sidewalks. Roads are a little bit different when you're doing concrete and asphalt for roads, but sidewalks generally don't need as high a standard, in my opinion. And it was also mentioned in our meeting about possibly allowing local building codes to be used rather than the state standards on some of those things, especially for sidewalk designs or construction, just to try to speed the process and possibly lower the cost a little bit so we could actually get the projects done or get a little bit more done with these projects. So just a suggestion to encourage CDOT staff and all the things that we have to jump through to try to simplify those and not continually add things that make it more difficult and more expensive to get done. So see, Craig is on now, so we'll move on to our truck chain up station report.
Good morning. My name is Craig Hurst. I'm CDOT's Freight Program Manager, and I'm here to talk about the chain station study that CDOT completed over the last several months. Next slide, please. So the background on the chain station study was it was generated from Senate Bill 24-100, and Section 6 of that piece of legislation. It required the Freight Mobility Safety Branch, which is where I work, to conduct a chain station feasibility study. Of course, the freight team here at CDOT is a very small team, and so we worked with the regions, with stakeholders, with our ITS group, our Division of Maintenance and Operations group, to complete this study. But what the legislation asked us to take a look at was to identify new chain up and chain down locations, inventory the current chain stations statewide, inventory and discuss all truck parking on the I-70 corridor, examine the economic impacts of road management strategies during major storms, and identify technology opportunities to help better manage chain stations. Next slide, please. So what problems are being addressed? So Colorado's unique risk profile when it comes to mountain driving. We have for the communities on the mountain corridors, but I-70 is a bypass, being that we're in the middle of the country. especially when Wyoming and I-80 are experiencing severe weather. Observed challenges: commercial motor vehicles can spin out and stall during snow condition or snow-covered roads, especially if they do not have chains on. Highway closures due to CMV involved incidents, and unsafe roadside chaining and chain removal when there isn't a chain station or the chain stations are overburdened or have too many trucks already in them. And then there's a limited enforcement capacity during active snowstorms because they're busy cleaning up crashes and doing playing their role as law enforcement. So why does this matter? Obviously, there's a significant safety risk to drivers, first responders, and the general traveling public. There's economic impacts to shutting down the roadway, to not just the statewide economy and the industry, but just the general traveling public and our ability to move goods and services and people around the state. And then it puts a significant strain on all the resources that are responding in these scenarios. Next slide, please. All right, so I think we all understood most of what I already covered, but here's what I think some folks are going to be surprised about. We currently have 130 chain stations statewide. Those are combined, though. 74 of those are chain up and 56 of them are chain down. That is more than the rest of the country combined. And so we have a large network of chain stations throughout the state. They are currently on 21 freight routes, identified freight routes throughout the state, but 75% of those are in our regions 3 and 5, which is the Western Mountain regions. For obvious reasons, there's a couple out on the Eastern Plains on I-70, as you can see in this map, but the cluster of chain stations are mostly in the western portion of the state in regions 3 and 5. So since 2016, CDOT has invested roughly $41.5 million of National Highway Freight Program funding into building and maintaining chain stations, which is about 1/5 of all of the freight funding that we've spent since that time. And so there's been a significant investment into improving and continuing to build chain stations where needed throughout the state. And the funding towards improved technology is currently underway in a pilot program that's being designed right now at the Vail Pass, the chain station going on eastbound I-70. Next slide, please. So when I say there's 130 chain stations, not all chain stations are equal. If you've been on I-70, you understand that there are some significant chain stations at Vail Pass, at Bakersville, both east and west. We have locations. Those are the formalized, they have lights and striping and signing. In a lot of cases, they have additional barriers to separate traffic from the main line. Those are what we'd call formal. Then they have impromptu, which are more, they're less formal. They may not have striping. They may not even be paved, but they are maybe compacted road base and things like that. I think a lot of us have probably seen that. We don't necessarily recognize them as a chain station as we're going by, but they're used on a regular basis as a chain station during storms. And then we've converted to locations that really were just flat spots in the road that have been converted into chain stations by just adding signage and using those locations as necessary. Next slide, please. So on average, Colorado has about 228 chain law activations statewide on an annual basis. You can see this graphic here on the right side. It's a fairly fun one. The bottom has the milepost, and so you'll see the towns at each milepost. You have Vail at 177, Copper Mountain 197. So that's telling you where it's at on I-70. The elevation is on the left side, so you can see the elevation of the roadway and kind of the profile of the mountain corridor on I-70 there. And then the top of the graphic is a box of how many chain laws and where the mile points they are that we have on average on I-70 and where those locations are. So, there's a couple different aspects to that graphic, but we try to get it all into one so we can see kind of how chain laws overlap with the locations that they're put in on an annual basis. So one of the things that our enforcement during storms is a resource that's constrained. Obviously, there's other things to do at times during storms, whether that's cleaning up crashes or making sure that everyone is safe. That they can't have, our law enforcement partners can't have a full focus on enforcement. And so what they are doing, though, is they're conducting enforcement blitzes for the must carry law. They're doing that on a weekly basis with the goal of a preventative action. Obviously, truck drivers still need to, they can have chains on the truck, but they still need to stop and install them appropriately during active chain law. But the must carry compliance is showing signs of improvement. I think the additional laws, the additional aspects of Senate Bill 24-100, one of which allows the port of entry to do more chain law enforcement, where the Loma port of entry near the Utah border couldn't do chain law enforcement in the past. They can now. That allows us to start capturing truck traffic that's coming in from the west and moving east. It allows us to start having that conversation about chains and enforcing our chain laws at the border. I think that's going to play a role. And I think, partnerships like the town of Vail PD does a really good job doing enforcement and helping as well. And so we're starting to see better compliance through some of these actions. Next law, please. Or next slide, please. So truck parking was another key aspect that we were asked to take a look at in the study. So collectively, between state-owned and private truck stops, there's 1,884 truck parking spots on I-70. Obviously, when we shut down roadways, those can fill up very quickly. And illegal parking at chain stations can reduce the chain station capacity. So we might have a truck that shows up to a chain station. Maybe they look ahead and see the conditions and they decide, I don't want to move, go any further. And they decide to park in a chain station. Well, that can significantly reduce the capacity and capabilities of that chain station. And so we obviously discourage trucks from trying to park in the chain stations during an active storm. But CDOT's also continuing to make investments. We have new investments at Vail Pass, and the best areas. So the top of Vail Pass parking, there's 17 additional. So on top of the 6 that were already there, there's 17 additional truck parking spots that were added to the Vail rest area. And then currently under design at the Araba rest area, which is out east on the plains, we're currently designing additional truck parking at that location, not just for regular legal trucks, but we're trying to design in some oversized and overweight truck parking spots for all of the wind energy moves that travel on the eastern corridor, so they have places to park and don't impact the communities in those areas while they need to shut down and either rest or check equipment or do things like that. Next slide, please. All right, so key challenges and obviously, building a chain basis. What's interesting is that even in places like Michigan that we would all probably think of, snows a lot in the winter, their freight planner who's worked for them for 10 years had never heard of a chain station until recently. So they don't have any chain stations in a place like Michigan, obviously because it's flat. And so as we look for opportunities to build chain stations where they're needed, there are some significant challenges. First, they have to be above the average snow line. And then when you get above the average snow line, it becomes very limited in the amount of right-of-way and roadside access that we have. And so they can be quite the projects to build and develop. Also, some of the challenges, because they're in these locations that are at the top of the mountain, we have a lack of power and communications in these remote areas. It's harder to bring electricity, harder to depend on things like having solar energy and things like that. And so they become costly to build because you have to trench from far distances to bring electricity and communications to these locations, simply because they need to work in the worst conditions. And so that's part of the issue. A lack of paired chain down stations in some areas where we'll have chain up on one side of the mountain, and then you'll have no chain down on the other side, which can create safety issues and can impact the community where trucks are don't find that they have a safe place to pull over. So maybe they pull into the community, maybe into the shopping center, things like that, to be able to take their chains off, and it can become more impactful when we don't have a chain down station. And then right of way. Obviously, when you get into the mountain corridors, right of way is not only hard to come by, it can be expensive. Obviously, we need to make sure we're not impacting the environment. So we need to do all of our environmental work, and then geographical constraints. Obviously, we're in the mountains. We have cliffs and everything else that you would potentially have to cut into to build wider roadways for these chain stations. So all of that can be a project development challenge, not one that we can't overcome, but just one that usually takes or causes it to take a bit longer to develop these projects. And then I think one of the key things that we continue to hear from stakeholders is ensuring that the chain law is taken down and communicated clearly when roads do clear up. And so that's a system communication challenge that we already have systems for, but we're just continuing to improve the response time on those. Next slide, please. All right, so there's to continue the key challenges and barriers, there's some operational bottlenecks like underutilization of existing chain stations. During storms, when we have chain law at Bakersville westbound, there are 2 separate chain stations, and there's about maybe 3/4 of a mile in between them. A lot of times we'll put up the chain law and truckers see that the blinking yellow lights and the sign that says you must be carrying chains. So they immediately fill up the first chain station. We're going to work to build better communications to try to get folks to move up to the first one, fill that one up first, and then fill the second one up first. Right now, there's a queue that starts that first one. And there's still maybe more trucks than spaces, but we definitely can get much higher utilization out of the one that's just west of that first location. Technology and communication can be the issue, can often be the issue. A lot of times there's, you see the roadway, you start to lose traction on that, and it can take time to get the chain law up, communicated, and get everybody compliant. And the same thing on the backside as we're trying to take chain law down. And so we're continuing to improve those systems with our Division of Maintenance and Operations and our ITS teams. Drivers parking in chain stations, a lot of times they will park and then bed down for 10 hours due to the laws around driving. It's not only are they deciding to park, they're going to do their 10-hour reset, which is federally required. And not just anybody can go knock on their window and ask them to move. We need law enforcement to ask them to move. And so that takes another resource constraint to do that. And that's because they have to get permission to move while their electronic logging device basically says they should be on their 10-hour reset. And so there's some technicalities and regulations that make that part tough, that make it a resource constraint. And then getting stuck at chain stations or not chaining at all is an obvious problem that we're trying to address and trying to improve compliance with all of the efforts that we're making in this arena. So there is some new chain station management technology that's going to be tested here in the near future. Really what it is, essentially, the idea is similar to a parking structure management system, except this one needs to work in the worst conditions, that we all see in our state during major snowstorms. And so that technology is exciting, but obviously needs to be tested and integrated into our traffic management system. So that pilot will continue over the next 12 to 18 months. It may take even a little longer than that, depending on how each technology is tested and the results. Next slide, please. All right, so we worked with our economist here to develop an economic and safety analysis. And so what she did is did a proactive versus reactive closure analysis based off of what the legislation asked us to do. So CMD incidents obviously take close the roadway for longer. On average approach, the roadway is averaged to be closed for less time, for 54 minutes less per event at 2.6 hours. And the economic impact summary to the industry is that, you know, we talk a lot about the big number to the economy. That calls for a much bigger study, I would say. So this one focuses on the impacts when these different corridor management techniques are put into place. And so there's about, according to the federal numbers that are put out in these metrics, so that's what are kind of misused, it's about $115,000 per hour to the industry when there's a full I-70 closure. But there's an average savings when we take a proactive approach to these things of about $103,000. And then there's an extreme event that they're very rare in the data set that we were using over the last 4 years. But those usually occur when a CMV, goes off of the roadway, and we're going to need multiple attempts to right side it and clean it up. And so sometimes that truck might, sit on the side of the road for a day or a day and a half, or maybe 12 hours until we can get the right equipment and have a better time to shut down a lane or two on the roadway to get it cleaned up. Those can be a $1.6 million cost to the economy there when we have those impacts. And so those bigger events are significantly impactful, not just to the surrounding communities, but to everybody in the industry as well. Next slide, please. All right, so here are the numbers that our economists use when developing this. So basically what you're seeing here is the average annual daily traffic, the amount of trucks per hour, total cost, the same kind of numbers that I was just talking about in the last slide. So really that's her showing her work. Next slide, please. All right, so during the process, my team did some outreach to stakeholders that we know are on the corridors every day, operating on that, to internal stakeholders, to external stakeholders, and we had a questionnaire about, what are the priorities, what are the biggest challenges. Also, during that process, we helped to ensure that our inventory was up to date and that there wasn't any chain stations out there in the network a record of, which was not as. And I think both internal and external stakeholders have called out a need for chain stations on 285, specifically around the 280 to 285 marker on 285 is where the most of the focus has been. But I think that whole corridor can be looked at, and then we'll have a finer magnifying glass on those specific mileposts that we continue to hear from feedback. That's a challenging corridor to acquire right of way and do environmental and all those things. So we're focused on that. It's a priority for us, but I can't make any promises until everybody does the appropriate pre-work to develop a project to get a chain station on 285. And similarly, maybe not as frequently, but the I-70 near the Copper Mountain, not necessarily on I-70, but that general area of Copper Mountain, we continue to hear that it needs an additional chain station. The other location that I know we're doing some pre-work on, but is not necessarily something that we heard a bunch about is, going up Berthoud Pass. There's potential need for chain station. Most of that is local traffic. And so there's not high truck counts on Berthoud Pass, but obviously it can be challenging and have snow-covered roads. And food and fuel and supplies still need to make it up to those communities in the winter. And so my team in the region will continue looking for opportunities in all three of those areas, but specifically on the 285 corridor. But the freight team at headquarters simply works with the regions to identify locations and help direct funding to these projects. The regions do all the work. They're the real folks that are boots on the ground and solving these problems out there. Obviously, the constraints we've kind of talked about, or at least mentioned throughout this terrain, it's not the whole corridor that could use a chain station. It's really specifically where the snow line averages and above from an elevation standpoint, simply because we don't want to put chains on trucks too early and then tear up the pavement. And so if you're putting chains on wet roads or even dry roads before the snow starts, you obviously can sacrifice pavement quality over time if you allow trucks to run with chains for too long in those conditions. Right-of-way acquisition isn't just a cost thing. Some people just simply don't want that on their property or to sell the property, and so it becomes more of a challenge and more of a process to acquire that right away. And then environmental sensitivity. Obviously, the mountain corridors, like everywhere else, but especially in the mountain corridors, that can be environmentally sensitive areas, and we have to do extra work to mitigate those challenges. Next slide, please. All right, so the future. So according to the data that we have from the federal government, when we conduct our freight, a Colorado freight plan every 4 years, tonnage, or the amount of freight that's going to be moved in Colorado, is supposed to increase by 29% by 2040. Freight growth, or the value of it, is scheduled to grow up to 50%. And so I guess that's just saying the problem's not going to get smaller. There's going to be more trucks and more stuff to deliver in Colorado. And so we need to continue to focus on these key safety measures so we can keep roads open, keep people safe, and continue to efficiently move goods and services. So there's some new technology that's helping us in that direction. We have emergency in-cab alerts. Is something that my team and the State Patrol have been continuing to develop with capabilities of being able to do this. So when we have a snowstorm, we're sending messages onto the electronic logging devices of trucks while they're still in neighboring states, letting them know that Colorado is experiencing a significant snowstorm and that chain law is in place or roads are closed, and trying to give truck drivers the choice to take the appropriate detour before they even enter our state. So not only are we doing that using geofencing outside of our state, but obviously as maybe you're coming from the east side of the state and the mountains are snowing, we have in-cab geofence messaging as you're approaching the areas that are impacted from all directions. So that's not a universal silver bullet, if you will, because not all trucks have to have that system in there, but we're working to get the message out. And then, one thing about the trucking industry is they'll jump on their CB radio and start communicating to others when they get critical information like that. And so we're hoping to help spread the word in all ways possible. So we're looking at real-time station availability with the technology I was talking about at Vail Pass Chain Station. That'll help our traffic management folks ensure that we're getting maximum capacity better, and so you get better usage during these storms and better efficiency. And then centralized activation and monitoring. There's a current project that we'll just call it phase 1, where our ITS group is working to improve our connection to these chain stations. There garage door opener. As you drive by, you can click the button and it activates the chain station. But our goal is to get them all connected to our traffic management centers. So we can add a push of a button from the traffic management center. We can turn chain stations on and off in correlation with what we're seeing on camera, or maybe in correlation with what we're seeing with traction control devices. Once we start to see traction loss, we can turn on chain stations. Those things are going to give us better capabilities to turn chain station and chain law on and off at a fingertips notice, if you will. And that'll make us more efficient in our communications when conditions are starting to deteriorate. And so I think those technological developments can really help us improve keeping roads open, communication, and the long-term success of the operation of chain stations. Next slide, please. All right, so we have a couple coming out of this. We have a couple short, midterm actions that we're working on, and some funding outlook of how we're gonna pay for these. So we have a bunch of chain stations currently funded and working towards delivery in 2026 and 2027. Those are on Highway 24, on several highways in Region 5 in the southwest corner of our state. And the regions that we've been working with, we funded them. They're in design. They're working to get them out to construction bid and get those delivered in 2026 and 2027. And then we'll continue to identify new locations like the 285 corridor to work with those regions to add additional locations there. We're going to continue to work with ITS to expand our remote activation and lighting projects. Will improve our ability to turn those on and off at our fingertips, and then it'll improve lighting. It's not just improving lighting, but it's making sure it has less impacts on the surrounding community. We're obviously making sure we're dark sky compliant and those types of things when we are adding lights, but making sure that the appropriate safety precautions are taken when we develop these locations. And then we're going to continue to work with State Patrol and local law enforcement partnerships for a continued focus on enforcement and education campaigns. If you haven't heard about our Mountain Rules truck safety series, we have an entire truck safety series on YouTube that stars a Colorado truck driver and the chief of the State Patrol talking about the challenges of driving in our mountain corridors, not just in the winter, but in the summer with hot breaks and things like that. And so Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration sharing that information now. There's lots of different partnerships that we're developing there to try to get this concern and information to our neighboring truckers. So not just Colorado truckers need to know this. We're mostly concerned about drivers that are traveling through our state and don't have the experience in the mountains. In the midterm, hard it can be to get power and communication systems to these rural locations in the mountain corridor. We're going to continue to address where we don't have chain down stations paired with chain up stations to improve safety at those locations. So we want to address municipal mitigation needs. So as we develop locations they're going to be near mountain communities. We want to make sure that we're mitigating the needs of those local municipalities. And then we're looking to potentially in certain locations enable multi-use facilities where they're feasible. So maybe they're can be used as a trailhead in the summer, but an emergency chain station during the winter when there's an active snowstorm. That gets tricky on how we communicate that and how we ask folks not to park there when we need to use it as a chain station. But we're looking at opportunities to do that so we get more use out of these locations year round. So again, we talked about investing and how we have the National Highway Freight Program, which is a basically federal program that's funded 80-20 with the state. We're going to continue to align with the regions on projects with that and continue to meet the demand for this. So strategic prioritization is what we're calling it, but we're looking at the data. 285 is risen to the top, not just with our stakeholders, but the data shows that we do need chain stations on that corridor. Again, it's just picking the right locations and going through the process of acquiring right away, doing the environmental work and doing it all appropriately to set up a project that will be impactful. So again, we've had a focus on this for the last 10 years, and we're going to continue focusing on this moving forward where necessary. But I will say my team was pleased. I don't think anybody would have guessed 130 chain stations if we were looking at it before looking at it collectively. And so, there are some improvements that can be made to those 130 chain stations, but we're really excited about that network and continuing to maintain it and make it available to not just the trucking industry, but those that need it in time of emergency. That's what they're there for, to improve safety and keep our ability to keep the roads open during these snowstorms so everybody can continue to move goods and services and people to the destinations they'd like to go. I think that's my final slide, but next slide, we'll double check. That was right. All right, does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Todd Masters?
Yeah, Todd Masters, TC Commission. I appreciate everything you've done. It's outstanding. My next question, or the bigger issue, is the compliance and the proper placement of chains on trucks. I mean, I've witnessed a couple different instances on I-70 where the chains were improperly installed, and to no avail. They don't work, right? So my question is, have we made any progress in order to help these guys put chains on, number one, either by um, having to pay for it or someone there to help them install chains properly for someone that never comes into Colorado? Where are we at in that situation? Because
Yes, sir.
everything else you've done is great.
Yeah, the Division of Maintenance and Operations is going to be running the program that was authorized in law last year to allow for that operation to occur. So we'll have a permitting process that will allow a private third-party vendor to come out and offer those services to install chains on trucks or passenger vehicles. That does take a little time to develop that program. I know they were writing the rules. They're working on the rulemaking on that this year and developing that program in our Division of Maintenance and Operations. And I can't promise it'll be ready for this 26-27 winter season, but I would anticipate we make a lot more progress, and we have that opportunity to potentially have that on the roadway next winter season. But I also think we've done a couple events. I'll tell you, sir, that it's tough because a lot of times we're not talking to Colorado drivers. So having events where we're showing, we have active truck drivers out there showing the correct way to install chains are not going to be as effective as we hope, because the drivers we really need to stop and have pay attention are probably not in our state today. They are, somewhere else hauling a load, and by chance they're going to come through Colorado 3 weeks from now on the worst storm that we've had this year so far. And so
No doubt.
our Mountain Rules truck video series addresses that, and our goal is to continue to get that video series in front of drivers from other states. If you're in Miami, Florida, and you get your CDL, the federal law requires that we teach you about mountain grades and driving and chains. But how do you practice that? And so your truck driving CDL school might spend about 15 minutes on that, where a CDL company that's hiring a new CDL driver here and has to insure that person, it's probably going to spend more like 3 or 4 weeks on that instead of 15 minutes. And so I think that's a challenge, is that there are requirements in the federal training guidelines, but how do you practice those if you're not here in the mountain corridors? I think that can be one of our biggest challenges to overcome in the future. And we're looking at a pilot program to do just that, but I can't, obviously promise it's going to solve all our problems.
Well, thank you. You've done a great job so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, thanks so much. That was a really great presentation. I mean, it educated me a lot because I travel the I-70 corridor all the time, and I'm thank you very much for doing this. I'm not surprised that 285 has risen to the top. Having traveling that all the time as well. And I'm really encouraged that you're starting to see better compliance. So, that's a positive. Thanks so much.
And the better compliance, I have to have a shout out. I know Vail PD has done I hear from State Patrol that Vail PD has really stepped up and done a good job pushing compliance, doing actual compliance work during snowstorms, ensuring that trucks aren't leaving the Vail chain station without chains on. They're not going to be able to catch everybody either. But we absolutely are pushing this message. I know Bob Pfeiffer and his team in the Division of Maintenance and Operations are constantly pushing these messages as well. One thing I can tell all of you is if you get a chance, I have business cards, lots of them, over 20,000, that have a QR code that take truck drivers right to our freight page and give them access to all these videos that we've made. And so we're passing these out to law enforcement, to Bob's team that are out there on the road, and incident management, all these folks, to try to, if you come across a driver that doesn't have experience, hand them this card, ask them to go to that QR code. One thing I will say is we've also created chain law documentation in Spanish and Russian, simply because whether, you're supposed to, you have to be able to speak English to have a CDL, but I'm okay educating you in your primary language. And so we are going to continue to make those documents available. And so we're trying to, reach as many folks as possible with the information that you need to know to safely operate in the Colorado mountain corridors.
Okay. Any other questions, comments for Craig? All right. Thank you, Craig. Good presentation. All right. We're ready for Bob with the CDOT live camera update.
Hey, thank you, Chair. My name is Bob Pfeiffer. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations within the Division of Maintenance and Operations, and I'm here to give you all an update in regards to our live view camera updates and kind of maybe share some background on that part of the program within my part of the division. To kind of take back in history a little bit, um, CDOT operates over 1,000 cameras statewide, and about a little over a decade ago, CDOT got into a contract of kind of like a camera or a video for service type program with a company named LiveView, and basically the intent was the company would own the camera and provide us an image. That's how that was working, and they promised at the time that they could do these locations, and there was about 136 locations at the time, to augment our existing CDOT ran, managed, and owned camera system that we use to manage our highways. When that got implemented, it over the decade, and it was renewed in 2020 because they were the only bidders at the time. When that contract got renewed, they were noticing that even the vendor was noticing that they couldn't really commit to the 136 cameras. So it started, the number started going down and down and down and down. And over the last year, we were reducing their bill based on lack of performance by roughly 26%. Those were kind of performance-based payment reductions on the monthly bill they would send us or the annual bill that we pay. So we weren't paying approximately $500,000 because of lack of performance. So over the last few years, we were already working on a plan to replace those, the ones that were functioning, which was a little less than 100 that were working with our own infrastructure. And so out of 1,000, about, well, it was 1,100 and some change, so less than 10% of the cameras were were focused on actually getting replaced and owned by CDOT. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So earlier this year, we went out for the 5-year renewal, and we did get 2 bids, and both bidders withdrew their bids. So we really technically didn't have anyone to continue the service. The plan was, when we went out to bid, we assumed that we could probably renew with LiveView again for some time with optional years to give us enough time to have continuity of the streaming service on these 96 to 100 cameras that were functioning. And when both bidders withdrew and there was nobody, that contract with LiveView ended in July. So that put us in a little of a jam that we were going to lose approximately 96 cameras. So the good part was we were already planning and already engineering and already going out to bid, about to go to bid this year when this news came about in July. So to get you up to date, we did put it out to bid in November. We got 4 bidders, and we did award a company to go out and put CDOT-owned cameras up to replace approximately 69. That pre-construction meeting is scheduled at the end of this month, and the construction is planning to be starting in May. So that's fresh news as of this week. So it's probably not in a memo or anything, but that kind of gets you up to speed where we're at. In the meantime, we realized, and we kind of knew this was going to be an issue, but didn't understand the timing because we have not gone out to bid, and we didn't check the industry of how much capacity to go and install these cameras, how long that might take. So when the cameras turned off and we're getting closer to winter, and realizing it could take up to 2 years to do these 69 cameras throughout the state because of the construction window is very small. Because most of these cameras are in rural parts of the state, but they're also in high peaks and high roads above 6,000 feet. And as you know, for folks living up in the mountains, you can have snow 9 months out of the year. And so we can only put these poles in when we can have the ground thawed. Well, those were the most critical ones, obviously, are these passes. So we did get some temporary cameras put up. We did retain ownership to some of LiveView's poles. We told them they didn't have to remove them, they could leave them, and we would use those poles to at least put a temporary camera on it. It's not a permanent solution, but it is a temporary solution. And we did get Cameron Pass, has a trailered version of that. We have Berthoud Pass, has one at the top on an old pole, and a couple on Rabbit Ears Pass, and then Colorado 65 at the Nordic Center. And as of this morning, we're going to get one more on Highway 149 in Hinsdale County by Powderhorn, hopefully up by Monday. So those are just temporaries. Why are they temporary? Why not make them permanent? It's a little bit more complicated than that. One of the issues that you have to think about is cellular coverage. We don't have fiber everywhere. We have to look for cellular coverage, and that cellular coverage goes up and down, but we do have contracts with all of the big carriers, so we can try to figure out which one's the strongest one, and we can replace those. The reason the company failed prior to us was because they kind of overpromised and overcommitted, under delivered, maybe is a better way of saying it. Because when they went to go put a pole up, then they realized, oh wait, there's no cell coverage here, it won't work. We're being a little bit more thoughtful and making sure that we are testing every location to see if we can get a company, doesn't matter which one, a company to give us cellular service that is able to provide the data we need back from that camera and the images. So that's kind of where our immediate response is. And when we find other key areas, we will try to put a temporary camera up. Additionally, why they're also temporary is because some of the things we learned with LiveView is the power system was also maybe not strong enough to boost the signal. So our electrical engineer is actually redesigning these cameras to have a more robust solar and battery system to ensure that powering of the cellular antenna and the camera is stronger, so that we can ensure that service is continuous. All right, next slide. So again, we already replaced 14 cameras when this already started. So you have to think we started with around 96 cameras. We've already replaced 14. We had about 69 still needing to be replaced that we feel are critical and are serviceable with the cellular service. So we did say upgraded or replaced because depending on the pole and depending on what we end up doing, it could just be an upgrade to the infrastructure. But we are focused on getting those done in the next 2 years. And as those cameras come online, they will be immediately on code trip and obviously from my operations centers. At the end of the day, my operations centers need to leverage these cameras to identify problems and issues and quality and the serviceability of the highway. And our maintainers use it to decide, do I need to run out there? Do I need extra material? How bad does it look? And that reduces the fuel required for somebody to drive and go look. So it is critically important for the operations of CDOT to ensure that these cameras are up as fast as possible in these rural areas so that we can have a more efficient maintenance of the highway and operations of the highway. So this news, I gave you newer news than this because obviously we've made some progress since November. And again, as we move through this, you will see these cameras come online. They can start as fast as 30 days after construction starts or less. So my teams are all poised to ensure that those are implemented right away. Next slide. So obviously, like I said earlier, we are transitioning to a more reliable owned system so that we can have the function 24 hours a day. And we are going to achieve a monthly operating savings. We were paying about $250 a month for the service. We'll knock that down to less than $50 a month in our operating kind of expenses. So there is a savings to do it. There's a larger, obviously, capital expense, but from an operating expense, it does behoove us to move to a CDOT-owned system for the reliability as well. And then obviously the resiliency. And that is my update where we're at today. In your packet, you should have got a memo that showed a map. it kind of shows where these cameras were and where they are and which ones are available today. I do want to verbally kind of express like the Vail area. When the Vail Pass, there was a lot of live view on Vail Pass because there was changes in the fiber and so forth. And so when those live view cameras were up there and they were functioning, we're not going to replace those because we actually already replaced those with CDOT owned infrastructure with the Vail when we installed fiber, but also we added additional cameras through the Vail improvement projects that have been going on the last few years. So that's the only area I would like to highlight. I will take it to the next slide. I think it's any questions.
Commissioner Bowman.
Hi, Bob, thank you for the update. Because I know I've already been asked about the Colorado 65 Nordic Center camera. Could you refresh me on when that temporary camera will be up?
It's been up for several months.
Okay, so it is operating. Okay.
And we did them a favor. We actually also take a snapshot every 5 minutes of their parking lot.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much.
So we
I
did the
really
highway
appreciate
and then
that.
we did the parking lot so they can see what was going
Yay,
on.
yay. Okay, I'll get on there and take a look. Thanks so much. Appreciate your presentation and thanks for this.
Yeah, we had that up in October for them. So we hopefully beat the snow. If we get any snow. We're hoping.
We're hoping to.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments, questions for Bob? For my TPR, I know I've gotten comments and questions over the years from especially the trucking industry, especially livestock haulers, kind of requesting that there be an increase in eastern Colorado on these rural routes, especially at the intersections of state highways and things, because they like to use those a lot to plan their trips. The weather forecasts are great, but it's also always nice to be able to see what a route looks like ahead of time, especially livestock when they take off. They need to be able to get to where they're going. So they use those to try to help plan their routes and make sure they can get where they need to go before they load livestock. So anything you can do to try to get a few, they'd have to be cellular service. Don't know that they need to be live feed, but a snapshot pictures every 30 minutes or every hour sort of thing. I think it would also help the maintenance people out here be able to see some of these routes that are long distance from the maintenance sheds. So they'd be able to know what's happening out there prior to having to wait for a call or drive out there to see it. So just asking that rural areas in eastern Colorado also have increased access to these. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will tell you that one of the pictures in the presentation is actually us putting up those very tall towers out on I-70 in the Eastern Plains because we actually didn't even have cameras until the last maybe 2 years from really kind of like Deer Trail all the way out to Burlington on I-70. And we are improving that. So we wanted to get that coverage done and that's done. So you're correct. We need to start looking at like 385 and some others to monitor those highways as they are alternate paths sometimes to avoid Denver between states. So we'll keep that on the list to do it. And we think our new modernization approach on some of this and will give us additional flexibility at lower costs to implement cameras.
I know there's cameras that ranchers use to monitor their windmills and things, and it takes a picture a couple times a day and sends it by cell service, very reasonably priced. And I think those sorts of systems for CDOT for some of these rural ones may be a good alternative. You buy the equipment and install it, and most of it's fairly cheap if you use off the shelf equipment and not do all the extra engineering or other design standards that you may think you need, but a lot of these other systems do work rather well. So
yeah, and to further it, we are looking ideally I want streaming everywhere, but if I can't, I could take the snapshots. And where we are investigating how we can leverage low orbit satellite because it's a good price and we could get streaming then if we were able to do that. So we are working through some cybersecurity and around that. But hopefully down the road in some of these critical areas that there isn't fiber and we still want to stream, we'll move to this low orbit satellite kind of solution.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Bob, for the presentation.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Commissioner Bowman, did you have another comment or question? Your hand was up.
No, I just forgot to lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay, just making sure. All righty. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. Is there anything else anybody has to bring up? Our next meeting is February 5th, and I believe we were planning to do that in person.
Yep.
So we'll still plan on doing that. I noticed on my calendar, it still says virtual, so we may need to update that for the calendar appointments for people to help remind them.
We will get that updated in due course, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I just noticed it today because I was looking to double check times and stuff, so.
Those are usually set out like a year in advance, but we'll
Right.
get it updated today.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. Anything else from anybody? Seeing none. All righty. Well, we'll see you all in February, and we'll get that letter signed and sent for the MMOF. So, thank you. Enjoy the snow that hopefully we'll all get. So, thank you.